Yep. Good evening, everyone. So last session we discussed about services. So we learnt about how to create a custom service, how to create our own services, inject those services and use in our components. Now we will see some Angular built-in services. Built-in services which are already provided by Angular for handling various situations. So we have so many services. Today we will see how to use an HTTP client service. A HTTP client service is that. Generally, what is the purpose of this HTTP client service? It provides a set of properties and methods that are used to control, that are used to handle communication with the API. So we can handle communication with API by using with service HTTP client. Already we were doing which one? Fetch. By using fetch, we communicated with API, get the data from API and we used it. So we have this HTTP client. Why to use this HTTP client? Because actually it uses XML HTTP request object, XML HTTP request object that manages AJAX calls, that manages AJAX calls with API. That's what actually. Generally in JavaScript, if you have to communicate with API, we can use fetch method. That fetch method internally uses XML HTTP request object. Remember, this is the object which is used for communicating with API from the front end in any technology. JavaScript can communicate with API, jQuery can communicate with API, Angular, React, Vue, or any front-end technology can communicate with back-end API using various mediums. But finally, the object is this. That means all are finally using which object? XML HTTP request. That means browser understands only this. So different technologies have different methods, but they are not directly understandable to browser. Finally, everybody have to use this XML HTTP request. Then why different technologies have different methods? To simplify the features, to control the issues, to provide more facilities. Because directly what we done, we used fetch. What are the problems with fetch? Actually, various front-end technologies uses different methods for handling AJAX calls. Actually, JavaScript uses a promise called fetch, and JavaScript can directly use XML HTTP request, and jQuery uses, so it uses $AJAX, or it uses $getJSON like methods. So many are there. And Angular uses Angular uses HTTP client. Angular uses HTTP client. Actually, earlier Angular JS was using $HTTP. That means every technology, suppose some React uses third-party methods like Axios. There are so many options, right? All are doing the same work. Then why you have so many? That means the features, the requirements. If according to our requirements, this is enough, we will use it. Actually, we are fetching data from API just using fetch method. Then what is the necessity of other techniques? Why we need other techniques? Because at certain situations, JavaScript have some problems. To overcome those issues, to get better functionality, we will go with these techniques. For example, what are the issues with the fetch? Do you know? Already some problems we know. What are the issues with fetch? What you identified? Anything? One issue I was regularly keep on telling with fetch, that fetch will not directly return JSON. It returns data in which form? Binary. We have to convert it into JSON. Every time when we discussed fetch, we were discussing that. That is a big problem. It is not directly returning data in JSON. That means what fetch is doing? So it returns response in binary. So you have to convert into JSON. Another important fetch problem is actually, so it cannot handle asynchronous. We cannot handle asynchronous. That means it uses blocking technique. Blocking technique means when it is fetching, it will stop all other activities. Until fetching is finished, it will not allow any another task. So that is not good. Actually, we can handle that using JavaScript asynchronous methods. JavaScript have asynchronous methods, we can use them. But internally, fetch directly cannot use asynchronous. It is synchronous. That means it uses a blocking technique. Blocking technique means actually it is synchronous. It is synchronous. And security issues will be there. Security issues means lot of security issues it cannot handle. Major security issues you will face with APIs is, one is CORS. CORS is cross origin resource sharing. That means this issue will come if data is coming in a binary form. If any data is transported in a binary form, then our browsers will think it is a suspicious data and they will block the data. That means converting to binary to object. Binary need to be converted into object. Object to binary, binary to object. We call this mechanism as COM marshalling. We call that mechanism as COM to marshal. That means firewall block COM marshalling. COM marshalling means COM marshalling is nothing but converting binary into object and vice versa. Converting binary into object into binary. This mechanism is called COM marshalling, common object model. So COM marshalling means transporting and converting both are done at a time. And binary translating conversions, firewalls will block them. Then what happens? Your browser is unable to receive the data coming from an API. In various situations, it may block it. Then as a technology developer, what we have to do, we need to identify, is the browser blocking? If browser is blocking, we should write explicitly CORS methods. By using those CORS methods, we push the data, then it is available to client. That is what fetch fake store people and NASA people were doing. NASA people, fake store people, when they create API, they were internally handling this CORS. If they don't handle that CORS and you try to access the data through JavaScript, it will be blocked. That means at server level, they can handle, or at client level, we can handle. Client level, we can handle. If anybody is not handling at server level and our browser is saying that I am unable to transport the data, then what we do is, you see in my browser, I have installed, this is my Chrome browser. In this Chrome browser, I have installed an extension called CORS Changer. Why I installed this extension extra? Why I installed this extension? Because due to any technical reason, if any API is blocked by my browser, by using this tool, I can remove the block and allow. But if the person who returned that API, he managed that CORS his server side, then I don't need this tool. Why this tool is given? This tool is given means somebody who return API may not be handling CORS his side. Then only few browsers will allow. Other browsers will block. Some browsers will allow. Some browsers needs extra plugins. We have to install that plugin. Through that plugin, we have to turn on and off. Then only it will be available. Right? So this is not recommended. That means we don't recommend client. That means we will not tell him that you install this plugin and turn on this to get data. We need to write the logic in such a way that in every situation the data goes to him. So fetch have this problem. CORS issues are there. Another fetch problem is it is having XSS issues also. That means cross-site scripting attacks. Later at the end of Angular, I will tell you how security is managed. That means, remember, web security is very important when you develop websites, applications. When you develop web applications, web security is important. Some people, security means they think that user ID, password, login, these are security. No. Website security is not verifying user ID, password, login, register. That is not security. That comes under authorizations. Do you know? Application security is not user ID, password, registrations. Application security is not about verifying user ID, password. Application security is about preventing your application from hacking, preventing your application from various attacks. That is the important thing. That means many people think that securing application means only registered users can use. That they think security. That is not security. That is authentications. Authorization. Authorization means what? You are allowing user to watch something only when he successfully log in. That is not security. That is not security. That is called authorization. Angular, React, or any web technology, security means our application must be designed in such a way so that it will withstand any type of attacks from outside. That means a hacker attacks on our site in several ways. And if it can withstand those attacks, that is security. For that, some precautions we have to take. Those all comes under security. Like CORS, like cross-site scripting attacks, like another is request forgery. All these are security things. Cross-site scripting as attacks, request forgeries. These are all very challenging things for web developer. Building a website is easy. Everybody can build. But preventing the website from outside sources is important. Means affected by attacks, right? That is where genius people also fail. You know, NASA websites also hacked. You know that, right? Facebook accounts are hacked. Twitter accounts are hacked. That means Facebook, Twitter accounts are hacked means what? That is not account problem. That is security problem in Facebook. That is a serious problem. Right? That means Facebook have genius developers, but there are several loopholes also. Right? That means preventing their application is always a challenge for them. Right? At any level. That means you built an application at very high level, but there will be somewhere some issue. You left it and hacker will identify it. And through that he will attack onto your application. That is all security. Security means not user IDs, passwords, cookies and all these things. There are so many other techniques are there. We will discuss that. This part you will understand at the end. I will tell you how Angular manages its securities. For that it have a separate library. By using that library, we can prevent these kind of things. We can manage these kind of things. Okay. Now, these are all the issues with the fetch. So to overcome these issues, then in different technologies, we use different methods. Now, jQuery have some methods like AJAX. And another problem is here, not only these. So poor in error logs. That means it is not great in handling errors. It can handle error, but it is not good in logs. That means it can tell where error occurred, but which error occurred, at what time occurred, how it occurred, these are all again challenging. Developer don't have a complete clarity by using fetch. Developer have a clarity that error is coming, but he don't have a complete clarity which situation that error came. That can be monitored very detailedly in other technologies. That is the reason we prefer using other techniques, right? And the HTTP client have that facility, right? What is that HTTP client service? That means Angular HTTP client. These are all the issues. Huh? So Angular HTTP client, Angular HTTP client is more secured, and good in error logs. It is more secured and good in error logs. What is the specialty here is? So the specialty here is it returns data in JSON directly. That means no conversions required. There is no conversions required. So and it handles CORS client side. So it prevents cross-site scripting attacks. It prevents. How it prevents? I told you Angular have a security library internal. That library I will show you later. that security library of Angular internally manages everything. You don't need to write any program or anything. That is the reason several people who know Angular, they don't know these security features because they never need to use them because they are internally working. But you can explicitly show them and you can explicitly do some modifications in them. That means I said that it will prevent attacks, but sometimes we need to allow. That means client is unable to post something from outside, but at certain situation we need to allow. At certain situation we should not allow. In that case, we can change the settings. Now to Angular, we can tell that internally you are preventing this, but for few seconds or few moments, you release this. Or we can tell that for these kind of users, don't prevent this, allow this to happen. Such settings we can change. That we can do by using Angular security library. There is an Angular security library which you will learn. So that is the reason many people don't know about those security features. Even they know about Angular, security related features they miss. Because Angular is very well secured, internally it is working. And only the people who know how to modify the settings, they know about those libraries, those features, which I will show you how to change that. We will see, because some situations we need them. For example, you see, suppose I given here, suppose we have some Naresh IT website. Naresh IT website is there. In this Naresh IT website, I went to some course. I selected some course. Some course is here. Now what happens here? Scroll down. Some information is about this course. If there is something mistake in this information, can I make any change? Can I make any change? We cannot make any change, but in some websites we can. Those websites are called as wikis. Wiki. You might have heard about Wikipedia. Why it is called Wikipedia? Because the word wiki means quick. It is an Hawaiian word. Wiki means quick. Wikipedia means a quick reference for encyclopedia. But the main concept about wiki is a wiki allows users to edit its content. That is the advantage of wikis. And there we should allow clients to modify our content. That is challenging. If you are allowing anybody to modify your content, they can do lot of attacks on your application. And there lot of protection is required. For example, you see Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia. I am searching for JavaScript. Some results came about JavaScript. It says JavaScript is JS. It is a programming language, something. You see there is an option edit here. That means you know better than what they have written about JavaScript there. You can do editing here. And you can submit this. This is dangerous. You opened editing for everybody. This is very dangerous for application because lot of hacking happens here. They can attack into your application if you do this. Then you need lot of protection for this. This is challenging. Developing these things is very challenging because lot of security issues will be there. Not only this, for example, you know, I hope you people know IMDb. This is IMDb. This is IMDb. Suppose in this IMDb, so you can find movies, ratings, related information. I hope many of you people know. Am I right? Observe carefully here. Suppose in this IMDb, what we have done, suppose we selected some movie here. I selected some movie. The movie related information is not there, not found. Suppose I search for some movie, anything. Yeah. So these are all trailers. Huh? Suppose you see we have some movie search here. Suppose we will search some movie. Yeah. We searched for this movie and you see the results about that movie came. The results about this movie came and you see the movie cast and all. And you see in this movie, so there is an option edit. There is an option edit. There is an option edit. What is edit? Because some photos missing. Some crew people photos missing. Some story is not cleanly mentioned. You know better than what they mentioned there, right? You have their photos upload. Google Maps is a wiki. It's not a website. Listen, Google Maps is a wiki. It's not a website or web application. Twitter, it is a microblog. It's not website. Twitter is a microblog. YouTube is a podcaster, not website, not web application. YouTube is called as a podcaster, right? These are all technical terms, right? Everything on internet is not a website. Do you know Twitter is not a website? Even in newspapers also they write. In microblogger Twitter, this person tweeted this message. Even they know that it is not website. It is a microblog. Right? These are all technical things and everything have different behaviors. And designing wikis is very, very challenging one. Why? Because lot of attacks will happen on your application because you are opening editing, then it is very complicated. So lot of attacks will happen. I hope you know when the World Cup happened, Cricket World Cup, India lost to Pakistan, right? Asia Cup, right? In Asia Cup, India lost to Pakistan, and in Wikipedia, several people uploaded a lot of abusing things related to Harshdeep Singh and attacked on that page of Harshdeep Singh's page, and immediately our government have to take over and take them all down, those all attacks on that. In just a matter of few minutes, everything happened, right? But important is we have to be very careful in designing such wikis because they are always dangerous, right? And lot of things will happen there. And immediately we need to take down security issues, abusing, spam, so much. All attacks will happen on them. We need to prevent, right? That is very important. That means until government takes control over it, they were unable to manage that immediately. Right? That is all the point. Security for application is not verifying user ID passwords. This all comes under security, right? So why to go with so many third-party related services? Because they are more better in security. Internally they manage, right? That is the ability of Angular. Angular HTTP client. So what is the specialty of Angular HTTP client? It have good error logs. That means it have a lot of facilities where you can easily track the error, where problem came, why that problem came. So all such things we can easily identify. That is the key concept of this client. Let's see how to use this now. That means how to use this HTTP client and communicate with the data and get the data and present the data. Now we are going to use a service in service. We are going to inject a service inside another service. One more point is required actually. Angular HTTP client uses uses asynchronous methods, uses asynchronous methods, which is managed by a third party library called RxJS. There is another library called RxJS. This will manage asynchronous technique. That means Angular HTTP client, it is going to communicate with the data and fetch the data from the source. While it is doing it, it may block other requests. Without blocking other requests, if it has to process your request, then it need a help of another library which will make the request asynchronous, and that library is RxJS. Actually, RxJS is separate. It is a JavaScript library. Just like jQuery, RxJS is a JavaScript library. But Angular technology internally using it. It is not a part of Angular. It is separate. Every JavaScript project can use this RxJS library to manage asynchronous calls. So Angular is internally using. When you create a project in Angular, this library is internally used by Angular. But it is not a part of Angular. That's the reason you see here in your where to know what libraries are present. We can go into package.json. In package.json, you will find here there is an RxJS which is 7.5 version. Angular is 14. Why RxJS is 7? It is not Angular related library. It is a third party. And individually, people actually can learn RxJS. Separately, you can learn RxJS. Just like how you learned jQuery or JavaScript, jQuery library, you can learn this library. It is very good in managing asynchronous calls in JavaScript based technologies. And Angular is internally using it. Separate RxJS is available. I will show you. So this is the RxJS official site will be there. This is RxJS official. This is official RxJS. This is official RxJS. Reactive extensions library for JavaScript. It is not Angular. That means, see, many times people, they relate everything to what they're learning. Right? That means generally they ask, so will you teach RxJS in Angular? Why should I teach RxJS in Angular? RxJS is a separate library. Right? We will learn how to use RxJS in Angular. Because will you teach RxJS means, again you have to spend 1 month time here. Because it's a library, separate library you have to learn. Right? That means we will use this library here. While using, you will learn what is it, how it works. Right? That means if you ask a question like, will you teach RxJS? It is completely different point. Right? Teaching RxJS means you have to learn like Angular. You have to learn like jQuery, how you learned. Why? Because it's a library. It's a big library. It's like a language and library combination. How you know JavaScript, jQuery in the same way this. There are so many such libraries which are used with Angular, React and other technologies. So why they use these third-party libraries? To make some better functionality when compared to already what it is having. Right? So why this library is used? For designing asynchronous calls. Asynchronous calls. You can go to the docs. You can see all the information here. That means how to set up, what are, see, it have everything. It have observables, observer, operators, subscriptions, subjects, so many things will be there. It's a big language and library combination. And I hope some words already you know. I told you in various occasions, if you remembered, you know, events, I told you event follow a pattern called observer. Remembered? Events follow a pattern called observer. There you heard about subscriber. Sender sends a notification to subscriber. These all terms are related. These all terms are related. You see, it combines an observer pattern. It combines an observer pattern. And about this observer pattern, I told you already. It is a communication pattern, right? So technically, these are all separate libraries. Angular, React, all these technologies will be using them because to make their work more simplified, more better. So why you need this library now? Because HTTP client can communicate with API, but while it is doing it, it may block other process. Now, if you want this to work along with other process, then actually we have to write a separate asynchronous programming. For that, in JavaScript, there are separate methods called async and await. You know, JavaScript have separate async and await methods. By using them, we write asynchronous programming. Without necessity of writing that, we will simply use a library called what? RxJS, which will manage them internally. That is why learning a framework is easy than learning a language or a library. Why? Because framework is built with everything. You have to just use them. If you are learning a language or library, this everything you have to manually write. Angular is a framework, so it is very simple. Because you don't need to write everything. Everything is written for you. Libraries are provided, just use them. Right? So RxJS is a library which manages asynchronous. Can we manage asynchronous without this library also? Yes. For that, you have to write JavaScript asynchronous methods, asynchronous and await. Without doing that, we can use this RxJS. I will show you how we can manage that, right? Let's see. Now, this library also required. This library also required. Okay. What this RxJS library will do is actually RxJS provides several operators. RxJS provides several operators that can manage async techniques, that can manage async requests, that can manage the asynchronous requests. It provides several operators that can manage asynchronous requests. In those operators, two are important. One operator is an observer. Another operator is an subscriber. These two operators are important. Observer and subscribe. These two are important. What are these operators? I will show you. I will explain, right? What observer will do is, observer is using an observer pattern. Observer is using an observer pattern. So which is a communication pattern used to execute the methods in async technique. In async technique, in order to execute the methods in asynchronous technique, we need an operator called observer. By implementing observer, it can perform the task in asynchronous way. What is meant by asynchronous way? I'll tell you here. Suppose, what is an asynchronous way? Let's see here. Suppose we have some actions like some A, some B, some C, some D. Now, actually, So this A is suppose thus A is 20 MB. This B is 10 MB. This is 4 MB. This is 8 MB size. Now what happens is from the client makes a request to A. It is 20 MB. To get response from it, it is taking time. In a synchronous way, it will wait until it is finished. That means until the complete 20 MB comes, it will wait. After A is finished, then it will go to B. Understood? This method is called as synchronous. Asynchronous means it will make a request to A. It is taking time. It will not wait. It will go to B. It will go to C. It will go to D. And what happens? Whichever is ready, C is ready. C will come first. Right? After that, some D is ready. D will come next. This mechanism is called asynchronous. That means until your task is performed, it will not wait. It will do that in the background. Several websites will tell you that. They will say that we are doing the work background. You can do any another work. In the background it is doing, you can do any another work. Some people will learn very strictly that don't push back, don't refresh, don't do anything until this is finished. If you try to do anything, it is cancelled. Right? Some are strictly managed in a synchronous way. Some are managed in an asynchronous. Here it is good to manage in an asynchronous way to improve the performance, right? For that we need this. So what is a observer? Observer defines a method which will execute asynchronously. Then what is a subscriber? Subscribe is an iterator. Subscribe is an iterator. What the iterator will do, you saw the diagram here. What iterator will do, one by one it's reading. That means subscriber executed and this observer executed, the result is coming, and the result to be, it has to read the result one by one. For that it uses an iterator. That iterator is this. What is that iterator? Subscribe. Subscribe is an iterator. Iterator means what? It reads the data in sequential order. Sequential order. It reads the data in sequential order from start to end, and it returns the data. So you need two things here. One is observer, another one is subscriber. Let's see how this all works now, right? So we will go here, and first we need to add a service. Close all, and the service is to communicate with APIs. We will do one thing. So first we will create a service. Let's do one thing. In the folder, there is a services folder here. Right? Let's go to the services folder and add open in integrated terminal. Okay. In the services folder, here we will generate a service. Already we learned how to generate a pipe. We can create the pipes manually, or you can generate the service. How to generate the service? So here note is you can generate a service. You can generate a service using CLI command. So we have to just use simply nggs and service name. That's it. So you can skip this, right? That is how generally we have to create a service. Ng generate service and service name. That's it. You will get everything there. Ng generate service, I will give which service, what we will give? We will give the service name as API data. That is API data. That is the service name. Okay, skip test. So a service is created by name API data. And you can see the code in that service file. Let's go to the API data. And you can see everything in the same way how we written yesterday. Same thing we have written yesterday manually, right? We have to import an injectable. We need an injectable provided in, and you can ignore that. You can write in providers, right? You can configure in providers. Here, API data service, it is having a constructor. Now comes the part here. Here, we have to inject another service into this service. Into this service, we need to inject another service, and that service name is, we have to import HTTP client. HTTP client, actually it is present in from, so it is present in @Angular /common slash, so in that we have HTTP. In Angular common HTTP, we will have an HTTP client service. We have to import that. But this HTTP client is not directly available. It is, remember, it is a class you are importing. This is present in a HTTP module. That module must be imported into your project. Then only you can use this class in any component, in any service, right? That means now this HTTP client is not directly available. So what you have to do now, go to app module. In the module, you have modules now. This is where the modules are imported. Modules are imported in imports. In imports, we have to import a module. What is it? HTTP client module. But actually this is present in, where is it? Here we have to import. What is that import? HTTP client module from what is it? @Angular /common, so /HTTP. From this location, we have to import HTTP client module, right? And now this HTTP client module is enabled here, right? Then only you can use this HTTP client here. Okay, we need one more here. So we need to import. We need to import an observable from RxJS. Because this is used to execute your service method in an asynchronous way. To execute the service method in an asynchronous way, we need that observable from RxJS. Okay. Now what we have to do here is we have to inject this service into our service. That means a service in service we are using. How to inject a service already we learned yesterday. In the constructor, what we have to do? Private HTTP. It is of what type? HTTP client. That is how we are injecting. Now all the service methods you can access by using HTTP. So we will write two methods inside this service. One method is we are going to communicate with fake store. So we will use get categories. Okay. We will write a method. What is that? Public get categories. Get categories is a method. What this get categories method have to do? This get categories method have to return the data coming from fake store API. It should return the data. So what it should return? It should return the data coming from API. How you will fetch the data coming from API? No fetch method now. We will not use fetch. What we will do? This dot HTTP dot get. We have get method for fetching, post method for submitting. So get from which location? URL. URL is http:// what is it? fakestoreapi.com/what? Products / categories. It is going to return all the categories. Now the problem in this service method, it is not asynchronous now. It is not asynchronous now. And whenever you write a service method, automatically Angular is intelligent enough and it highlights, it alerts us that do you want this asynchronously? You see, this service method is expecting observable. That is expecting observable. It is saying that better make it as asynchronous, right? That we haven't, this is our own method, na? This is our own method. Then how it knows that it needs an observable based on what it is returning? It is returning a data coming from API, then it thinks that observable is now necessary for this. But we are not using observable, it will be fine. But you have to use an observable to make an asynchronous. How to make it? You have to mention the type as what type? Observable. Observable is going to execute the method and it will tell what type. Remember, observable is a generic type. Generic type means you have to tell what type of data is going to be returned. Asynchronously it will execute, and what type of data this API going to return. It is going to return what kind of data? String array. It is going to return string array, then get method also should return. It should also return a string array only. That is how we need to define. That means what type of data you are trying to return by using this API URL. You have to mention the type of data through observable. Because observable will return this data to subscriber. What subscriber will do? Subscriber will perform an iteration over the data. How subscriber knows what type of data observer is returning? That means observer have to tell what type of data is coming from API. So it is a string type array. In that case, if your return type is string type array, the get type also should be string type array only. It is compulsory that the get should return that string type array. It should be generic type. Then only it can return this type. It can return the type. So that is one method ready. Another, what is it? Get products. Get products is again, so this method have to return, what have to return? This dot http dot get. Get, it should return http:// what is it? fakestoreapi.com/what? Products. Now we need an asynchronous method. Then you see the asynchronous method. What is that asynchronous method? Observable. This time what type of data? Because it is an array of objects. Actually, if you have a contract created for that fake store type, you can use that contract. Understood? You can use that contract type array. Otherwise, you can simply keep what type of array? Any type of array. And the return also, get is also returning what type? Any type array. The service methods are ready. Now what is the point is, wherever you want to work with fake store data in any component, now you don't need to write any fetch methods or anything. Just inject this service and use these two methods. That's enough. That means you have to inject that service and use those methods. Let's try. So this API is ready. That means this service is ready. We created a custom service called API data service. In that we are using an built-in service called HTTP client service. What is the role of HTTP client? It will communicate with the API. Currently we are using only get. Later I will show you both get and post, how it works, right? Initially service is ready, where you want to use it. Let's create one component. So I will open here a component, ng generate component. So I will give service demo. Okay. Skip test. Is there any service demo already? Not there. Okay. I am creating a component called service demo. Now in this component, I want to work with FakeStore API. If I want to work with FakeStore API, so let's keep that service demo in startup in the app module service demo in index.html service demo. Service demo. Now localhost service demo working fine. Okay. Now let's go to the service demo component. In the service demo component, in the TS file, here we want to work with the data. So I am declaring public categories. Categories is a what type of array? String type array. Initially it is empty. Another public products. Products is an any type array. This is also initially empty. Now we need to collect the data coming from FakeStore and store in these two locations. Then what we have to do? Simply first we have to import the service here. Which service? Import. We need a service. What is that? We need a service called API data service from services. And we need one more here. RxJS is required here also, because observer is sending data. Then who can collect that data coming from observer? They need a subscriber. They need a subscriber. That means here you have to import a subscribe. So from RxJS, from RxJS, we have to import. You have to import a subscribe. So you have to import a subscriber. But actually, see, it is not required. This is required when you want to handle some errors on that iterator. Actually, we don't need that. How it works, I will show you. See, because observer can internally have that method. So this API data service, we have to inject into our component. So private data, it is of what type? API data service type. Now through this data, you can access all those service methods. On initialization, what to do? So we have to access this dot data, have a method called get categories. What this get categories is doing, it is returning a list of all categories. Now we need a iterator which can read all those categories. Who is the iterator for observer? Iterator name is what? Subscribe. You see, subscribe method is directly working because its type is observer type. Am I right? Then automatically subscribe method is working. What is a subscribe method? It is an iterator. Whatever data returned by this method, it will iterate and read every data. That means it is going to read what? Every category. Am I right? After reading every category, what it is going to do, it should apply this dot categories is equal to what category. That means I'm just using an arrow technique. This is nothing but reading every category and storing that category inside the collection called categories. Because it is an iterator, it will read from first to begin and it will store every category inside this. Right? All the categories information is now present in categories. Now you don't need any fetch or anything here. We have to just inject a data service. In that there is a method called get categories. You can use it. It will do the work in the background. Now same, I need one more option. What is this? This dot data dot what? Get products. What we have to do? Subscribe, read every product, and this dot products is equal to, we have to apply that product. That is ready. Now the array products and categories are having the data. Let's present them. Let's go to HTML, and here I want to present all the categories. Div, class. So here we will put a class and a container fluid, and just roughly here I will create a section. In that we have a nav, in that we have a select, and here we have a class form select, and here we have some class row. This is class as call 3 something. Now in this I need to generate an option. It should repeat for every category. So we have to use ng for let item of what categories, and we need to print here item. That means all the categories information should come and display here, and it is working fine. That means this time we are not using fetch. We are not using fetch. We are using the official method provided by Angular, right? We will put here, so fake store. Okay. That's the heading I defined, and it is able to access them. I want to display all the products just roughly here. We will put a main area, and in that just I am using ordered list. Here I will put a class call some 9. Okay, and we are creating a list item here. In the list item, what we are doing, ng for let item of collection. Collection is products. And here I will just print only item dot title. I don't want other details. You can present all other details, you know. All the details are there. This is the same concept working with our API data. But this time we are using an HTTP client. HTTP client is an service internally provided by Angular to communicate with the APIs. But this is only one direction. We are fetching and displaying. We will see second direction also. How do we post? But to post, we need to learn forms. How to design a form. Through the form, how we can submit the data. Then it will able to store in the database. We will see an end-to-end communication, how it happens with backend technologies. But initially, this is the basic method to communicate with our APIs. Right? So what we done, we created a service method here. So we created a service, data service. In the data service, we are importing one, HTTP client and observer. We are injecting that HTTP client service. Remember, HTTP client itself is a service. If you want, you can right click, go to definition, and you will see, you see this is a class here. And actually this class is using, and you see internally it is using. So it is like a service class, but it is manually created. It is using an HTTP handler. I hope you people know the purpose of handler. You know the purpose of handler? I explained the flow, if you remembered. HTTP handler you saw na? In the Angular request flow, I explained in component lifecycle. Right? Remember na? These are all these things you need to be concentrating on to actually request flow. So here I showed you HTTP handler, this one. Right? What is the responsibility of that handler? That means handling the request and sending the response. That is why. That's why I told you that technology is very huge, complex. Everybody don't know everything behind it, right? If you say I am 20 years experience in a technology, still I can have some questions for you. That means you say I am 20 years experience, I have questions for you, which you can't answer. Even with your 20 years experience on the same technology on which you work. Understand? That means it is very huge internally. Any technology, you have 20, 25 years experience on technology. Without an interview, nobody will take you to company, na? Right? Then how, what we will test for a 20 years experienced person in technology? Such things we test. We will see really is genuine genius or not in the technology, because background architecture is very complex, right? So what this handler will do, go to the definition of handler. You see it is managing an HTTP request. It is managing an HTTP request. You go to the definition of that HTTP request. This HTTP request class is having a lot of things internally actually. You can see it is having a lot of things. In that actually, do you know headers? Headers means it decides what type of data you are going to return. Is it JSON? Is it HTML? Header will decide the content type, what is going to be delivered. These are all complex internally. It is built with so many things. These all you don't need to do. Just import one service, use it. That is the advantage of service, right? Technically, this is one concept about working with HTTP client. What we done? So add a new service. What is the, how do we ng generate service? You can give S or service. Service name is API data. Skip S. After adding a new service, API data dot service dot ts. In this, you have to add this. Copy. I will paste that here. This is what we need to do. Okay. Next, one more is there. HTTP client will not work. You have to go to what? app.module.ts. Here, you have to import a HTTP module. Without that, it will not work. From this library, HTTP common library, you have to import and keep this one, right? I will keep this one, imports. In the imports, so many are there. In that, you need a HTTP client module. After that, you can inject in any component. So add a new component. We added a component called service demo dot component dot ts. In this, I am adding this logic. That is the service demo component dot ts. And we have another one. What is it? Service demo dot component dot html. In this, this is the logic, how we are presenting the data. This is the option. This is complete communication, how we can manage by using HTTP client, right? Now, next important, we need to learn how to manage. This is only get. To manage post, we need to learn one more concept now. To manage the post, you need to learn about Angular forms. Angular forms. In Angular forms, you will learn Angular form services are there, validation services. By using these Angular forms, we can submit data. That means we will learn both get and post. How do we work with the API? That we will see next session, right? So now, tomorrow first, I will give complete FAQs now. Tomorrow, remind me at the beginning, so that first I will discuss all the FAQs related to pipes and services. Then we will go into forms. right? By learning forms, now we can see backend integration, how API communicates with backend technologies and database. End-to-end example we can design now that we will see. Okay. So with the forms concept, we will do that, right? Tomorrow we'll continue, right?